And now it's time for us to look at some selected national dailies and see the stories that made it to the front page of these selected national dailies we'll be looking at on Daybreak this morning. And of course, we'll start with Daily Trust as a tradition here on Trust Television. The lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper says reps ask CBN to withdraw circular on cybersecurity levy. Writers attached to the story says Senate committee justifies levy, but you might just want to know what that but is all about. Falano supports rep. Another SAN says provision unconstitutional. And then they said levy will slow down financial inclusion. NESG there speaking. You might just want to get details on all of that on page 4 in the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And the masthead, insecurity, Kaduna to relocate 359 schools, page 24, accommodates that story. GT Co. shareholders approved $750 million capital raising, page 19 has details. And POS agents will not pay monthly tax. That's coming from the CAC registrar. Get details of that story on page 21. Let's take a look at this one that says fresh violence as troops exit Okwama, page 24 has details. And on South Africa, Ramaphosa signs bill to recognize Muslim marriage. Wow, you might just want to know why it wasn't recognized and why he had to assent to that bill. Page 22 has details of that story. And the pastor arrested over defiling of 3 minors. Page 17 has details. We have a pictorial here. We see a former Minister of Aviation, Hadi Serika, his daughter, and others during the arraignment in Abuja yesterday, the 9th of today? Okay, 9th of May 2024. Get details of that story when you read further in the Daily Trust newspaper. The last story here on the front page says ex-aviation minister Serika. Okay, that's the story actually. You can get details of that story on page 6, and that's about the stories that made it for the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
And from the Daily Trust to the Daily Independent, top of the page, reps probe controversial Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project. Wants relevant documents sent to the National Assembly. Besides that, we see alleged 2.7 billion naira fraud. Ex-aviation minister Sirika, daughter, son-in-law, arraigned, get 300 million naira bail. Below the masthead there, lead story says Senate okays death penalty for drug traffickers. Others. And we see a pictorial there of President Bola Tinubu alongside Governor Obasani of Kaduna State when the president granted the governor audience at the presidential villa. Why I paid surprise visit to Rivers Assembly quarters by Fubara. You want to know why? Page 7 of the Daily Independent has that story. SEC rolls out new rules on issuance, allotment of private COIS securities. Unapproved issuance of securities to attract 10 million naira penalty. Page 29 has that story. And also in the telecom sector, contributions to GDP hits 13.5%, raked in 33 trillion in 2023. Senate reps disagree on new 0.5% cybersecurity levy. Yes, that levy. You can read more on that on the Daily Independent. And on the belt, it states alleged abuse of office. EFCC tenders documents against ex-CBN governor Emefiele. That story is on page 7. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Daily Independent for Friday today.
And for News Direct, this one is screaming to be read, and that happens to be the lead story. Federal government checks Lakbobiri, appoints co-chair for NCDMB board, seeks due process, increased investment in gas projects. Page 9 has details of that story in the Nigerian News Direct newspaper. Above that, despite impact of devaluation, Airtel records growth in mobile money services. Page 8. And then legacy I will leave behind as governor. That's coming from Seyi Makinde of Oyo State. He reviews. Page 22 has details. Reps worry over abuse of cybercrime levy, hold implementation. Page 7 has details. New bill passed by Senate imposes death penalty on drug traffickers. Page 2 has details of that story. And let's go. Okay, we have a pictorial there you might just want to get. Then on housing deficit, 698 civil servants to become homeowners. That's coming from Lagos Commissioner. How that is going to happen? Page 23 has answers to that. And that's about the stories we'll be taking from the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
And from the Nigerian News Direct newspaper, we go to the Vanguard newspaper. Above the masthead, it states Senate okays death penalty, of course, for manufacturers of dangerous drugs. This story is replicated across other papers as well. Cash transfer scheme raised household savings but had little other impacts. That's according to the World Bank. Deporting 317 Oshu indigents from Lagos illegal. That's according to Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria. And lead story on Vanguard states Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project not okayed by NAS, procurement for probe. That's according to the House of Representatives. It asks ministers of Works, Finance, Justice, and the Attorney General of the Federation to send all guarantees and credit enhancement instruments to the National Assembly. It says the project didn't get NAS approval. Also, Senate reps disagree on implementation of cybersecurity levy. This story was also seen on other dailies. 2.7 billion naira fraud. This story talks about the arraignment of the former Minister of Aviation. And also, IMF cautions federal government against CBN Act amendment. And to the story at the bottom, federal government, telecoms operators disagree on tariff hike. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper and also some of the newspapers that we can take so far. Of course, we'll be taking more of the papers as the review continues. With me in the studio now is our reviewer this morning, talking about Nuruddin Abdullah, editor at the 21st Century Chronicle. Nuruddin, welcome to the program.
Good to have you join us.
I really want to take us to Rivers State.
Yeah.
We saw, of course, we saw, what happened, what transpired yesterday. Just give me, what were some of your first reactions and what came to your mind when you saw the governor visit the Rivers State Assembly quarters?
I think the general feelings, particularly among observers of the Rivers crisis, is the governor now has regained his voice. He is trying to reassert himself as elected governor of the state. You can understand this fully if you go back memory lane. You remember those handwritten conditionalities.
Which they assented to the sign.
You remember when the thing started trending? We said, no, this is not possible. I remember what the reactions of even some legal luminaries like Falana and co. That the president cannot override the constitution of the country. The whole thing is some lawmakers, about 24 of them, the Rivers House of Assembly, defected from the PDP to APC.
That's the genesis of the problem.
Exactly. By virtue of that, and with the subsisting Supreme Court judgment and constitutional provisions, I'm not a lawyer, they lost their seats because there is no faction in PDP. As at the time,
there was no rancor in the party.
Exactly. Or what the Constitution says faction. Act. As at the time they defected. Therefore, the speaker, the speaker at that time was among those that had been defected. So his seat was declared vacant. And they wrote INEC to conduct election into their positions. That's the whole idea. So when they, you remember, the 4 other lawmakers who did not defect passed the budget, which the president, after that intervention, asked them to redo it again, which lawyers said, this is unconstitutional. You can't override constitution by presidential fiat. And at that time, the Fubara guy, look, I said, no, which type of governor is this? He said, okay, at the right time he will do the things. And we have seen what happened. At least he has passed the Supreme Court verdict. You understand? His election has been confirmed. And now he's trying to assert himself. He said, based on the constitutional provision, like the new speaker said, the last assembly sat more than 3 months ago, and now they have just reconvened. as far as they are concerned, there are only 4 members of the Rivers House of Assembly. So that is the situation. And unfortunately, you know, our politicians don't learn.
How so?
Thank you. The FCT minister, Nelson Wike, was powerful simply because he was governor of Rivers. He upstaged his political godfather, Rotimi Amechi, and even denied him access to the state. He wielded such enormous powers because he was in charge of Rivers State, a very rich state. Rivers now gets about 27 billion monthly from the FAC allocation. I'm not talking about the IGR.
Of course.
You understand. Even before Wiki, Amechi revolted against his political godfather, Odili, simply because he was governor of Rivers State.
So it's
a revolving door.
Continuation.
Okay, now, looking at this holistically now, even people like Edwin Clark has been talking about a looming crisis in Rivers State. How do you think this would turn out at the end of the day? A godfatherism, people trying to find their voice,
especially with these politicians using state resources as their arsenal.
You can nip the crisis in the bud by strictly adhering to the constitutional provisions. That's the only way out. Not presidential fiat.
Well, no, in all of this, it's seeming like two elephants. I mean, this is a classic case of two elephants fighting and the grass suffering the consequences. The grass proverbially here being the people of Rivers State who would now have to wait till all of this is sorted to see some level of development and impact in their lives.
That's true. But sometimes, you know, like they say, you go to work to make peace. You understand? That's why UN, which is a constitution, a body set up to ensure peace across the world, has an armed, or what they call the peacekeeping troops.
Of course.
There are sometimes you have to declare war to make peace. And like I said, most of the governors, you know, they are so intoxicated by power. You saw, Fubara was Wike's political son. Just like Obasani in Kaduna was El-Rufai's. I think these are the two classical examples. What is happening between Kabir Yusuf in Kano and Ganduje is understandable because an opposition party upstaged a ruling party in Kano. Just like in Sokoto, for instance, where the APC upstaged the PDP. Or in Benue, what is happening between Alia, Autumn, and what have you, is understandable. But you know, the misnomer here is Kaduna and Rivers. And do you know what is all this? Politicians should learn. Even if you install your son as your successor, he may rise against you. We saw what happened between the former Senate President, Bukola Saraki, and his father. The late Saraki wanted to impose his daughter, Alaja, Dr. Rukayat Gbemisola Saraki, you understand, as governor. But his biological son and the older brother to Gbemisola rejected it. He said, no. And you know, there was that political rancor between the father and a son. So politics is all about self-preservation. Wike chased Amechi from Rivers simply because he was governor. He was in charge of the resources. So you can't assume that, okay, simply because you install a Fubara and now you want to control him. You can't even do that to your son. The same thing in Kaduna. If Rufai has installed Bello, it will reach a time where Bello, because he will have to assert himself and revolt against the father. There is lesson there. Why must you bother Alaji Sagir that you must install somebody? Do your own, go.
Because of self-preservation, like you said.
Because you have stolen so much, you want somebody to cover it for you. We see what is happening. There is now a public hearing.
Okay. Now there's a public hearing, and you know we are hopeful, and we do wait to see how that chart its course. But elsewhere, on Thursday, the Senate, of course, passed a death sentence as penalty for traffickers of drugs. What came to your mind when you saw that headline?
It's just the normal hot air.
So if you're saying it's a normal hot air, that means it's going to be business as usual with implementation.
Of course, yes. You don't need to lose sleep over it. You don't need a clairvoyant to tell you that.
Do you see the president assenting to it?
Tell us what happened some years ago.
We did a story. As of that time, there are almost in the north alone, out of the 19 states, about 14 states have passed death penalty for kidnappers, assented to by their various state assemblies and gazetted. What happened to kidnapping? Has it stopped?
Has anybody been killed?
Instead, the thing exacerbated. Nigeria is not short of laws. That's what we're saying.
Some of the best
our problem is not that we don't have laws. Why is it that there is corruption, particularly in the public sector? Allow this again. As an agency, department, commission, whatever, if you want to remove 50,000 naira from a government corpus, do you know the paper that will...
You'd have to go through.
You understand? Different units, but they connive
with civil service
and steal the money. So it is not the laws, but how enforceable are the laws? Most of the states have passed capital punishment for kidnappers. But what happened? Has that stopped? So these are some of the issues. Similar to this, you remember when the then government of President Buhari saying that they are going to arm more people. Even the road safety fan officer. Say no, bearing arms, the number of agencies bearing arms is not the problem. How efficient are they?
Well, exactly. I mean,
so that's the problem.
The federal government will always say it's taking all of those decisions, actions, and creating some of those policies to make life easy for Nigerians. And talking about policies, of course, now we ease into the cybersecurity levy. I will ask you this question because I know you will have a lot to say about it. So let's have it.
Do you know my problem with Nigerians is this?
Okay.
Where were they when this law was being passed?
We
all went to sleep.
2015, actually.
We all went to sleep.
Now.
There was a public hearing on this.
And now we are complaining at implementation.
And even the National Assembly members, some of them were there. They are not complaining. It's just like the Electoral Act. That they gave one consultant. They didn't even read what the consultant wrote. And they came to the Halo chambers, passed it for first reading, second reading, concurrence, and it was signed. And it affected all of them. So that is the problem. Where are Nigerians? Let me give you an instance. We like politics. We politicize everything. Long time ago, during the Jonathan's time, there was a time, the first time that this cyber something came, the National Assembly was trying to work on a law. At that time, there was not even iPhone or whatever. It was this BlackBerry something that they will intercept, check your SMS, messages, whatever. We did that story. It was an exclusive. With infographic, we spoke to experts. I don't think it was even reviewed by some other media organizations. Everybody kept quiet. So that is one. Going further, levies are not totally bad, Mr. Sagir. Nigerians need to be taxed. If you go to UK, if you go to US, Canada, and whatever, where you have life is easy and everybody is trying to japa, it is because they call it taxpayers' money. Nigeria is under tax. That's the truth. Whatever the prevailing conditions are.
But the question, will Nigerians be able to afford to pay all of this tax if everything in the country has increased in the last decade except salaries.
At this again, how many? We are now about 230 million in the country, right? That is the figure now being bandied around. Estimated figure, about 230 million. What is the ratio of public servants, federal and states? You talk of civil servants, how many are they?
But it goes a long way to affect.
It goes a long way to affect.
I know.
Because they have defendants.
Okay. How many families in the country are public servants or have public servants as breadwinners? I'm coming. We can't use public servants as our rationale for everything. No,
of course we cannot. But then
and
again,
see, and do you know what? All this thinking.
It's the responsibility of the government to provide an enabling environment for Nigerian citizens to thrive.
Thank you, Nigerian citizens, not public servants.
Now, these Nigerian citizens are expected to, at one point or the other, begin to pay some form of tax or levies to the government. They deserve to be provided for as well.
Thank you. You are now accusing the presidency or whatever of getting loans. We are
getting
excuse me, right? Nigerians are angry. If Segil flies Abuja Lokoja Road or Abuja Kaduna Road, he will be costing what if you that the road has not been fixed. Where will the government get the money? Some civil servant with no schedule go to the offices and see, are now asking of 1 million as minimum wage.
Okay, but Malam, I know you're making a
Where would the government get the money?
But
the government has been getting the money for the past years.
In this country. So if we're citing examples that some of these things don't work, we've seen in different instances where, you know, for fuel subsidy, for instance, for almost a year now, we've been paying the subsidy. What has changed?
Thank you. Do you know, because of this idea of no, we cannot do it, civil servants are complaining and what have you. What Nigeria should demand is accountability. Let me give you an instance. Third fund was established. If you are talking about a government agency that implements capital projects with ease, it's third fund. Almost go to all the universities, the polytechnics. As proof. Where are they getting their money? Is it 1% of company tax that goes to them? Nigeria, we should demand accountability. You can't say that you cannot be levied. With cybersecurity threat everywhere, where will the government get the money? So our military are on the CDF 2 days ago. He said that their major problem now is poor equipment, poor welfare, poor remuneration. You understand? So the issue is simple. Nigerians must be taxed. That's the reality. And you know, it is only when you are taxed that you will ensure that where is this tax going? It is not oil money that will come to Abuja and share. If you are taxed, now you have the right to ask, okay, where, so time in the first quarter we have realized this, where is the money?
So, Nuruddin is saying that when Nigerians begin to get taxed, of course we know
they will demand accountability.
We demand accountability because you know that it's your money that the government is spending, and you don't want the government to spend money that you worked so hard for, buying SUVs for.
Thank you very much.
For House of
If, for instance, just a second, very briefly, if Nigerians are taxed and we demand accountability, we wouldn't have allowed these lawmakers to be buying 150, 170 SUVs. They call it project cars.
But you know that some of these things you say, you talk about them, but it doesn't work. Like, they do not listen.
There are certain things, if Nigerians, you allow everything to be handled by NLC. And NLC and whatever, they have lost their credibility. You understand?
We want to talk more, talk about more of this, but the director is screaming in our ears that we've exhausted our time in the studio, and it's indeed time for us to pack up and leave for the next set of programming that will be coming to you live on Trust TV. It's been a lovely conversation from 8 a.m. till now, talking about a variety of developments in Nigeria, the Senate passage of the death sentence for drug traffickers, Manuddin submission on what's happening in Rivers State, the cybersecurity levy, Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, and a host of other interesting conversations that we had on the program. Our hope is that you had enjoyed every part and every segment of the program, and you would join us again next time for interesting bits on Daybreak on Trust TV. Until then, I'm Sagir Ibrahim. Have a lovely weekend.
And I am Martia Umar. Have a good day.